In the late 80s, with the arrival of Sega's Mega Drive, localised in the US as the Genesis, arcade graphics in the home looked to finally become a reality, with rasterised visuals, huge sprites and smooth scrolling that seemed impossible on 8-bit hardware shining on Sega's 16-bit behemoth. These were graphics unlike any previously seen in the home, and the 16-bit revolution was in full swing, and yes, that revolution would be televised. I'm Dan the Mega Driver, and in part 1 of this micro series, James the Segaholic discussed the first 6 games that would form this dirty dozen gems that did the arcade proud in the home. And now it falls to me to tag in for the second half to discuss the 6 remaining arcade titans that shined on Mega Drive hardware. Once again, leave your expectations of ray tracing, ambient occlusion, dynamic shadows, deep learning super sampling, tessellation and all that modern stuff behind. This is the era of the scaler, the scroller, of parallax and most importantly, blast processing, when Sega did what Nintendo didn't. So strap in, grab your weapon of choice because we're dancing up a storm in part 2 of 12 times when the Sega Mega Drive brought the arcade home. In 1989, the sole arcade sequel to the original Shinobi added a canine companion to the adventure and saw ports to several platforms, including Sega's Master System. But it's Sega's own 16-bit adaptation that is most fondly remembered, which landed on the console in 1990. And yes, it's an adaptation rather than a port, with the game loosely based on the arcade original. Featuring new stage design and gameplay elements more suited to the home console crowd, just as Revenge of Shinobi did, Shadow Dancer is a fantastic game in its own right. Once again, you play as a ninja, using your shurikens and sword to dispatch foes and rescue hostages around levels. But what about bringing the arcade home? Well, the Mega Drive version does share a number of locations with the arcade original, so you can compare the two, and the Mega Drive does a fantastic job of bringing that arcade style home. Yes, the resolution and use of colour may be a little lower than the arcade, but at a glance all of the details are there. Just like fellow arcade original Altered Beast, the Mega Drive versions feature some enhancements such as additional details like the cityscape on the bridge stage and numerous instances of additional parallax scrolling. This was an example where the home version may actually be better than the arcade original, being a match for it visually whilst accommodating its home audience. 1989 was the year of the beat-em up, with a number of high-profile belt scrollers all hitting the scene. But while some would get heavily compromised ports onto 8-bit machines, Golden Axe came to the Mega Drive pretty much intact that very same year. In fact, unless you have both versions running side by side, you might even think that it's arcade perfect. All of the gameplay is there. You pick from Free Warriors, Gilius Thunderhead, Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare, and go on a hack and slash adventure through a high fantasy setting. In addition to using your weapon to attack, each character has their own brand of magic, which is replenished by picking up vials dropped by thieves during gameplay. Every level is present, as are all the playable characters, and the 2-player mode is present too. There's a little less colour and some minor details are missing, likely due to the cart size. But there's a bunch of other exclusive modes, such as a versus mode, and you even get a whole extra stage and extra final boss. Golden Axe was one of the early highlights for the Sega Mega Drive, and this faithful port is one of the reasons why the legendary franchise endures today. Just like in part 1, not every game here was originally by Sega in the arcade, but that didn't stop Sega from porting, or reprogramming in their words, the home port. Strider was one of the earlier games to run on Capcom's CPS board back in 1989, and it was a stunner in the arcade, so naturally, Sega saw it as a great way to showcase the power of their newest home hardware. Strider is a hack and slash platformer, where you play as Strider Hiryu as he battles to free a dystopian future from the mysterious Master Mayo. What's immediately stunning is the size of the sprites, from Hiryu himself to the various enemies that fill the screen, and even split in half with a swipe of our hero's blade. Even more impressive are the huge bosses that often fill the screen. For many early on in the Mega Drive's life, this was the game that truly showcased the power of the nascent console, and it's easy to say why. There are a few visual concessions, but overall it's a stunning conversion that impressed in a way that no other game had in the home. Ewat in the arcade was a personal favourite of mine. Released on Sega's System 16 board in 1989, it should have been a shoo-in for a Mega Drive port. However, like Shadow Dancer, what we have is an adaptation rather than a port. The arcade's run and gun gameplay is updated to create a deeper platforming style adventure. Just like in the arcade, you play as a cop aiming to join the mech-suited Ewat team. You start with nothing more than your pistol, but once you gain the suit, the gameplay changes and the action ramps up, and your abilities and durability are enhanced. This doesn't make the rest of the game a cakewalk, however, as the criminals are tougher, requiring you to make full use of all of your new powers. Now this one may be controversial as it is radically different in terms of gameplay and design to the arcade, especially since there's no two-player mode and the visuals are less colourful. But it still represented a step beyond what every other gaming system could do in the home back in 1990. Now, as impressive as these ports were, the X-board powered Super Monaco Grand Prix seemed beyond what any home system could deliver, including the Mega Drive in 1989. But that didn't deter Sega though. Now the gameplay on this one is outstanding, really capturing the feel of the arcade game in the home as you compete with other Formula 1 cars for victory. Yes, the playing screen is smaller and a lot of the larger scaling objects are now absent, but the game plays at a solid 60 frames per second and retains the rear view mirror. What is more is that Sega really went to town in delivering additional content for this one. The singular, purely fictional track of the arcade is still playable in GP mode, but players also had the full complement of circuits from the 1989 Formula 1 season in the new World Championship mode. In both modes, seeing the full complement of 16 cars in the starting grid is extremely impressive, and the new modes kept you coming back for months and months. While it didn't stand a chance of looking like the System X powered original, Super Monaco Grand Prix on the Mega Drive demonstrated that superscalar games could still look great, play great, and expand beyond the arcade game's content when they came home. Chronologically, the last game on this list, Alien Storm, hit arcades courtesy of the System 18 board back in 1990. Now by the time this port came home in 1991, the SNES had been released in Japan, representing a threat to the Mega Drive's technical dominance in the home and starting a rivalry that would be long remembered. But while Final Fight came to Nintendo system without a two-player mode and missing a playable character, Alien Storm landed on the Mega Drive, feature complete. All the characters are present, as is the two-player mode, and you even get the first-person blasting stages to complement the alien punching beat-em-up action. This isn't a straight port though. The entire setting for the game has changed from a city to a more rural-looking area. Backgrounds are completely reworked, and enemy placements are different. It's almost a brand new game, but still plays just like the arcade. It's not as different as Ewat or Shadow Dancer, but it's distinct. That said, you won't hear any complaints, as while it's not as popular as Golden Axe or Streets of Rage, Alien Storm is a fantastic game that is lauded by anyone who gives it time. And that brings us to the end of the video. Thanks for sticking with us to the end. If you want to see more of this type of content, give us a like or a subscribe, as that really helps the channel. And if you want to support what we do, think about becoming a member, which you can do from as little as 99p to get a number of cool Sega Guys extras. But you don't have to spend a penny to enjoy our content, and even watching is something we're extremely grateful for. Feel free to get in touch in the comments below. You'll find us on X, where I'm Super_D. You'll find James at the Segaholic, and you'll find the account at Sega Guys. So until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.